Next in order, we have an address, also in the form of recorded presentation by Professor Umberto Silpasso, the inventor of Gross Domestic Knowledge Product Model of India. Professor Umberto Silpasso is a Senior Fellow Center for Digital Future, Annenberg School of University of Southern California, European Manager at Heart, UCLA. He is the author of the first world model of Gdkp, innovating the 1934 GDP model of USA. He has his doctorate in economics from University of Bari, Italy, and MBA from Columbia University, New York, USA. He is a professor of global economy in several universities and has many publications in his own accord. He is the president of International Multimedia University. Would humbly request the technical team to kindly play his presentation.
For the most modern and dramatic issue, wealth and debt, which affects in India all people, all industry, all business. I am thankful to the President of IMS and to the Dean of Academics that we can talk of this important issue in such a valuable audience. And it is strictly related to this issue that I refer to as Chairman of NITI to congratulate you for the historic initiative for Gdkp India promoted by India, and at the same time to ask you to intervene to prevent bureaucratic obstacles that risk to make it vanish. Gdkp India is the first world calculation of the wealth of nations in terms of the most precious raw material in the world, knowledge. All major Indian statistical institutions have worked to make that achievement successful. The former DG of SCO, Shri Ashish Kumar, the Chief of Statistical Mosby, Dr. Ravi Arora, Mosby itself, finally the National Statistical Commission. But we must reckon that the critical push comes from NITI. Vice Chairman Dr. Rajan Kumar, world-known economist, who first tried to have Gdkp made in India. Dear Rajan, I waited for you every time I had to stop for a while because I appreciated your vision. And in economy, intellectual friendship counts. CEO Shri Amitabh Khan presented the model and got the big green light to the MSc. NITI has therefore played the most fundamental role in this Indian historical success. A good team of top qualified people, Ambassador Fabian, Ambassador Shetty, former DG Shri Ashish Kumar, and NITI consultant Dr. Rama Kamaraju. As inventor of the model, I was named by the government of India as Senior Fellow of NITI, and by NITI to direct the Gdkp calculation. Unfortunately, because of COVID, I could not come, and now there is a dangerous slowdown. Honorable Chairman, to stop the making of Gdkp India 2021 at the first step as suggested by NITI consultant is a national people. Something like that happened in USA with the first GDP, but the minister in charge went against the opposing statistician. And in the 90s, GDP was held as the greatest economic innovation of the century. We hope you, as Chairman of NITI, will do the same thing in the superior interest of the country. We will come back to problems, opportunities, lost, solutions, but now they start talking of COVID numbers, which is strictly related to the Gdkp. The last special issue of Scientific American listed major changes of the post-COVID world. High-speed scientific mind emerged, boom in diagnostic, public health is critical, global health institutes limits. We didn't get serious about climate crisis. Inequality got much worse. World changed forever. Vaccine inequality shut down vulnerable people. Pandemic research paid off and will pay forever. COVID is here to stay. But unlikely make the calculation of Gdkp a must because GDP alone is there. The king is dead. Long life to the king. That's the way that of king was announced. We do the same.
Head Fraud Risk Management, PNB Housing Finance, on current fraud trends in digital environment. Mr. Ravi Arora is a professional with 15 years diverse experience in BFSI. He is a startup specialist, functional unit set up for implementing and managing fraud risk policies, regulatory and internal compliance, digital transformation and automation of processes for cost optimization, market intelligence to augmented business development and profitability. He looks into investigation and deterrent setting. He is a member of Ethics and POSH Committee. He looks for fraud risk mitigation with early identification, assessment and prevention for all asset products. He also looks for channel management, recruitment and training of fraud and risk agencies. He is a further related to syndicate fraud detection and also looks for recovery and collection processes, monitoring and driving fair practices. It would be a great honor to hear you, sir. Humbly requesting you to please address the audience. Can we have a huge round of applause for sir?
Good afternoon, everyone. I am given the slot just after the lunch. It is actually the most dreaded time to speak when tummies are full and minds are drifting. How do you capture the attention of the audience when you know that their blood flow is directed towards digestion? Nevertheless, I will put an honest attempt. So I'll start with congratulating IMS community for hosting this great event on a topic of much relevance in current time. Dr. Manju is not here, so my warm regards and congratulations to her for being a leader who is preparing and taking up topics that are forward-looking and being the torchbearer in making IMS as an institute of knowledge excellence and then driving it to the length and breadth of the country. So thank you, Dr. Manju. Professor Umberto Salpaso, the propounder of the idea of Gdkp, the eminent speakers and distinguished guests. It's an honor and high privilege to be sharing the dice with you all. I am not an economist, nor an academician, but a banker. So, with my limited exposure, I'll be taking up the topic of how we can give the execution impetus to the Gdkp project. As per the recent data, India is home to 88 unicorns, the startups that has reached a valuation of 1 billion and above. And at fourth spot in the world. It is heartening to know that this count used to be just 21 3 years back. So we have seen and witnessed an exponential growth over last few years. Yesterday, our goods and merchandise exports crossed a whooping $400 billion mark. So what we are seeing is a surge of digital transactions in the country, which has seen a percentage increase of 53% last year. During the pandemic time, there were proactive measures by the government wherein we have seen a lot of enablers coming to the country. The government has given the RTG facility operational 365 days, 24/7. There were other initiatives like the National Automated Clearing House and Bharat Bill Payment. So all these helped and aided in enabling settlements even on the weekends. I was seeing an NPCI data, and what I realized is the UPI payments have surpassed the overall cumulative value of the transactions by Visa and MasterCards. So now these big associations are facing an existential threat from the big tech companies and alternate payment solutions in the country. So India is poised to be one of the largest and fastest growing digital economy in the world. A lot has changed after the COVID, and post-COVID era, we have witnessed an advent of technology which has transformed businesses and brought more transparency. Today, with accelerated growth in information technology, we are seeing electronic delivery of public services. New world of financial services has emerged, and there is increased usage of online payments and platforms for education, consumption, and payments. So I think all of this and many other such news is a result of the significance given by the government on capitalizing on knowledge wealth of the country, and government's drive and emphasis on programs like Atmanirbhar Bharat. In that context, I think Gdkp has a strong relevance, especially in current times, as it offers an opportunity for countries like us to not only optimize the inherent strength of the culture, but our knowledge wealth, and lead the world in the 21st century. As far as the 4 pillars of Gdkp are concerned, as stated in the draft by Professor Umberto Salpaso, the first 2 I see, the knowledge items and the country's knowledge producing metrics, like Dr. Manju specified, we are good and abundant in it. So it's already there. So the other two pillars, that is the country knowledge user metrics and the cost of learning, these are the 2 areas where we need execution impetus and more focused approach to come up and improve. What I see is that we have enough of all the things, and now is the time for head-down execution. Because we understand the relevance, we understand the context, we understand the utility, and we understand in next 2 decades to come what impact the knowledge factor will have in the growth of the economies. It is really difficult to quantify knowledge into workable data or numbers, but would suggest if we make some kind of a multi-plug extension which has various sockets into it, and to each socket we can then plug in a specific attribute of Gdkp. Now each attribute is then connected to various data source. So what I am saying here is a multi-layer capability can be built for collecting information. Now the data that is collected and the information, if we can make an orchestration layer over it, it will help us define and put a meaning to the data that we have got, and will help us to make it easy to assimilate. I think my friend and fellow speaker, Mr. Manish, highlighted on this, and he was talking about the AI and ML, and Mr. Rajput spoke about it. So now the current times, this is the need of the hour. We have to, and it plays a very vital role in making and creating such kind of infrastructure and system. Maybe then if such a system is made, we'll be able to ascertain which data point or attribute pertaining to Gdkp needs more attention of the government, which are the areas where we can allocate more funds, which are the areas where more engagement of resources is required at the ground. And also we can know how we fare vis-a-vis the economies of the world. What such kind of a system will do is, it will help to create and make the individual sector USPs of various states of the country or the regions and make it a national USP. So we know, and it is a known fact, that effective monitoring and evaluation is the underpin for the planning cycle, and it is an important aspect. So there has been movement, there has been progress in terms of data simulation, but now is the time that we need to expedite it and give it a measurable structure. So that will be it from my side. Thank you once again. It's a pleasure being here.
Thank you so much, sir. Next in the order, we have a video presentation by Mr. K.P. Fabian, who served in the Indian Foreign Services from 1964 to 2000. His last posting was in Rome as ambassador to Italy and permanent representative to United Nations organizations, including Food and Agriculture Organization, World Food Programme, and International Fund for Agriculture Development. Even while in service, Ambassador Fabian wrote and spoke on international affairs, mainly at universities in Madagascar, Austria, Iran, Sri Lanka, Canada, Finland, Qatar, and Italy. The first address he delivered, Mahatma Gandhi, in 1969 at the Charles University, Madagascar. His presentation on the North-South dialogue was published as a monologue by McGill University, Montreal. Would request the technical team to kindly play his video.
The progress of Gdkp in India and in the world. In fact, there is a perfect fit between Gdkp and the Indian civilization. We all know that Francis Bacon said, knowledge is power. But centuries before that, the Rigveda, we all know of the famous, immortal hymn of creation, 10:1-9. And the last stanza says, where is this creation from? Did it create itself? Maybe, maybe not. Does he, who is looking at it from the high heavens, does he know? And the last words are, maybe even he doesn't know. Look at the depth of speculation. In the Indian civilization, recognized the importance of knowledge and acted consequentially. The sacred books are called the Vedas. Now, Veda means knowledge, wisdom, scholarship. Is there any civilization where the sacred books are so intimately associated with knowledge? No. Now, we all have heard of the Sarkozy Commission, which wrote a report on economic performance and social progress, emphasized the importance of knowledge. But it is Professor Umberto Sulpasso who first came out with the idea of measuring the contribution of knowledge to GDP. That is an original idea, and this methodology is original. And in my view, it is important for India and for the rest of the world, because it would, once you measure the GDP of India and all that goes with it, it will accelerate India's GDP growth, very badly needed, and even more important, it will make sure that we have the means to take care of the bottom 50% of our population, what that Mahatma Gandhi wanted. So, I repeat once again, there is a perfect fit between Gdkp and India, and once India does it, the rest of the world will follow, well, illustrating once again that India can, on its own merit, be considered a Vishwaguru. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for lending me your ears.
Thank you so much, sir, for your hopes and wishes that we can be a guru for the world. Next in the order, we have Mr. Shakun Khanna, Vice President at Oracle, business leader. Mr. Shakun Khanna is experienced with the diverse worlds of HR, business development, sales and consulting. Mr. Shakun is a business leader who is passionate about making people successful. Over the last 25 years, he has worked in truly multinational environments across multiple industries with significant international exposure. In his current role as Vice President at SaaS Alliances and Channels, Asia Pacific, Oracle Corporation, he is responsible for the success of his partners for SaaS business across the region and also for defining the overall go-to-market strategy for the partner business and then guiding effective execution across regions to ensure sustainable growth. His current expertise is a result of his working with marquee organizations like Oracle Corporation, IBM, Gallup Incorporations, Manpower Group, Tata Group, and ICICI Bank in varied roles and functions. The diversity of his experience in his biggest strength, sometimes as a HR leader and at other times as a business leader. We hope to have a lot of learning sessions from you, sir. I welcome you to address the audience.
Okay, very good. Line is on. The topic is how can digitization help in increasing the GDP of the country? So how will India's GDP increase or per capita income increase using digitization? So the first question is, what do we mean by digitization? Before we answer that, how will digitization impact GDP and how it will impact your per capita income, what is digitization? Who knows what is digitization? Anybody knows what is digitization? Because if you don't know, then you will not understand how this will get done. So next 2-3 minutes, I'll tell you what is digitization, how will it impact the per capita income of the country, and most importantly, what is it that you need to do? Because ultimately, per capita income, GDP is all fine. I'm more worried about my own income, right? So how do you make sure that you are relevant, you are able to take benefit of this from a career perspective? That's a very important thing. But I'm very surprised, nobody understands what is digitization. How is this possible? Is there anybody in the room who knows what is digitization? Come on guys, right? Somebody has to know. Yes ma'am.
माइक को सामने करवाएं.
Yeah. So ma'am is saying that the use of digital media in anything is digitization, and that's correct, right? So very simply speaking, when you add digital to something, which means when you bring computerization to anything, when you bring an element. Can you hear me without the mic? Can you hear me without the mic? Yeah, that's okay. No, okay. Can you hear me now? Light is changing. So now can you hear me? Can we switch off these ACs for 5 minutes? Yeah, it will be fine. By the time this room becomes hot, I'll be done and gone. Digitization means that you apply technology, specifically digital technology. So there is a mechanical technology, which means you add a machine to something, and then there is a digital technology. So earlier we used to go and give cash at a shop. Now somebody created a Paytm, which means you have added digital to the money. That becomes a digital money. Similarly, earlier you used to go to the bus stop or on the road and look for a cab. Somebody created an Uber. Now you put the same thing on the digital platform. It is digitization. So if you look at it, everything in the world today, everything in our life is getting digitized or it is already digitized. Your education is digitized. You have online classes, it's about digitization. Your friendships are digitized. Now you make friends on Facebook, you make enemies on Facebook, So job search is digitized, everything is digitized. So what is happening is that everything is getting digitized. Now because everything is getting digitized, two important things are happening. First of all, because of digitization, you will have a lot more time on your hands. Earlier if you had to buy a shirt, it was a half a day project. You will go to the market, try out, then you will come back, half a day is gone. Now how long does it take for you to buy a t-shirt or a shirt? Online. 5 minutes, right? So 5 minutes, the 5-hour thing has become 5 minutes. Now you can do a lot more in the balance 5 minutes, 5 hours later. So the first impact of digitization is that you will have a lot more time. In fact, now organizations are thinking, does it make sense to have a 8-hour-long office time? Does it make sense to have 5 working days or 6 working days? In Japan, for example, Microsoft, what they have done is they have given Friday also off. Now if you work for Japan, in Japan for Microsoft, you only work for 4 days because everything is digital, so therefore they are able to accomplish that in much smaller time. The second thing that it will do is, it will reduce the effort that you will need to put in, and therefore cost will be saved. So again, buying a shirt, earlier you also spent on taxi, on fuel, then these shops had to pay rent, all that is gone. So digitization now means that a lot of cost is getting saved. So that is also getting added to the income of people, that is getting added to the GDP and the per capita. And lastly, there is a whole lot of business opportunity that is coming. So as sir mentioned, 88 unicorns, which means there are 88 companies in this country which over the last 1 year or so have become $1 billion, which means they have accumulated wealth of 7,000 crores or more, and multiply that by 88,000. So everything you will see is changing. So therefore it is extremely important that everybody understands what is digitization and then work towards it. Every career has to be a digital career. So therefore, what happens is, again, when you develop these digital technologies, India is the largest importer of software. That industry runs into billions of dollars. That is directly getting added to the GDP of the country and the per capita income of the country. So that is the first level, development of those technologies. The second is the usage. I talked to you about it, right? These days, there are beggars. When demonetization happened in India, there were beggars who used to beg on mobile platforms, right? So you could scan their code and transfer them online because there is no cash. So that's the second, which means the people, when they use these digital technologies, how they get impacted, how new avenues of employment are generated, and therefore they get. And the last and the third impact of digitization on this is the data that gets generated. How many of you have heard of a company called Cred? Cred. Do you know what Cred does? How do they make money?
Credit card will pay.
Yeah, credit card. I have a credit card. I pay the bill. तो उसमें क्रेड को कैसे पैसा मिलता है?
सर जो क्रेड होता है वो कूपन्स और जो क्रेडिट कार्ड बिल जो पेमेंट करते हैं ना सर, उससे वो जितनी जल्दी पेमेंट करते हैं उससे उनका रेवेन्यू आता है, वो ऐड भी देते हैं अपनी वेबसाइट पे।
कैसे आता है वो रेवेन्यू?
क्रेड बढ़ रहा है तो वो अपनी जो ऐप है उसको वो कहते हैं एज ई कॉमर्स प्लेटफॉर्म भी बना रहे हैं।
Very good. What's your name? Nikhil. Very good, Nikhil. It is a e-commerce platform. It is an e-commerce platform. But you know what is the real game? Cred actually knows all the millions of people who have premium credit cards in this country. They know how much they spend on those credit cards. They know what do they buy. So they are generating what is called as data. Data is the next oil, they say. So a lot of it will happen is that you will be able to sell that data. Cred can go to a particular car company, for example, and tell who are the people who can actually buy a Mercedes, for example. Who are the people, it's like what Facebook does, what Google does, that for them. So that's the third level of business model that is emerging. Right? So it's a very, very huge transformation that is happening. Nothing, even if you want to start a music class or a dance class, even then you have to have a digital thing. If you are not present on the digital platforms, if you are not using digital technology, so you will be there. So lastly, I just want to leave you with one or two messages, which is first is please go and understand how digital is impacting everything that you do. This is a design institute, like fashion designing, for example, is getting bombarded by digitization. Now there are bots that can do dress designing. So what does it mean for us, right? There are bots that are creating music. So first is you need to understand how digitization is impacting your chosen field. And then you need to develop new kind of skills. So that you are constantly updated. And last thing I will tell you, which is the biggest risk of digitization, is that the shelf life of skills is very, very small now. If you learn something today, in the next 3 years, it will become redundant. So you will have to learn something new. So keep on, it's not like you will say that one day my course will be over at IMS and my learning is over and I will now start working. That's not going to happen. Because of digitization, you will have to constantly keep on learning. Right? So that's the thought I wanted to leave you with. If there are any questions, we're all here, we'll be very happy. But all the best for the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable inputs on digitization and how it has evolved our lives. Next in the order, we have Dr. P. Srinivas Rao will be joining us through an online mechanism. Dr. Srinivas Rao is a proficient professional with 31 years of experience in carving academic institutions through technology and strategic planning, right from inception.
President and CEO in reputed institutions with international collaborations and Dean of the first global MBA program in India. He has coordinated academic exchange programs, attended many global summits and conferences in the Indian School of Business, BHU, IIFT, XLRI, IIM, Kolkata, IIM Bangalore, Ahmedabad, MDI Gurgaon, and many leading institutions and universities of the country. His current interest is in mentoring millions of students using technology in education and social media platforms and resourcing the right education inputs to the country's young mind. Towards this excellent initiative, the Mission Mentors Group has conceived. Dr. Srinivas is the founder and CEO of Mission Mentors. His academic credentials include MBA in Marketing, MBA in HR, and PhD in Management. Currently working as the director of Firebird International Business School, Coimbatore, India. Happy to hear you, sir. Over to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. A big congratulations to Dr. Manju Gupta, the Dean and Director of imsnoida Business School. And I would like to pass my special congratulations to Professor Peso and Dr. Harish Maran. And both of them happen to be very good friends of mine. And last 1 year back, in fact, we had two meetings, personal meetings, Dr. Harish Maran and myself, regarding the same project. And when you think about this project, it's one of the most wonderful and very wanted project for India. And India happened to from the ancient wisdom we have. And our knowledge domain is much superior than across the globe. And we have been known for our contribution in engaging our monuments, temple of architecture. That knowledge is not there anywhere in the world. And the kind of engagement what we used to do is highly inspiring and motivating. And as we have grown towards industrial revolution, it was not being accounted. Thanks to Professor Alfonso, who is really coined this concept of knowledge is a factor and is a multiplier for the economic growth and social information. And when you see the country knowledge production metrics, it's very interesting that particularly if we go back to industrial revolution during 1794, that when the machine and power by water and steam, the concept of the knowledge was only the hard working. People used to do a lot of hard working in producing the goods, particularly. The service was never being elevated in the economy also. It was more on the production point of view. Then later on in 1870, when the human manpower went this curve towards electricity and steel production and mass production, the training concept had come. The training concept is workers to create a quality production. Then the workers are being called trained workers, then the knowledge concept has evolved. Then later on in 1969, when electronics, automations and computers have come into the world, particularly the workers became smart and they became called knowledge workers. And from that time onwards, the knowledge was never being considered as a component and a multiplier for the delivering the economic growth. And today we are in the world of network and cloud computing and knowledge workers. Not only the knowledge workers, they are hybrid workers. Anything you take in the room today, also I'm talking in because of the cloud computing and cloud deliverables and infrastructure. So the cyber physical infrastructure plays a very vital role in today's economy, and all the people who are trained and whatever, for example, if I'm delivering this lecture or maybe my ideas, not only confined to me, but one today we are in the world of technology. So I think that many of mine have spoken the similar content. So I was doing research, small research, that how the innovation comes into existence, how the holistic creation happens in the existence, and how the enlightenment happens. Today, the most of us in the world, when you see that the lack of enlightenment creating world wars and also destruction happened, negative impact has happened. Knowledge is not a negative impact, rather it is a positive impact and producing the good and well-being of the society. So if you ask me that how innovation happens and what are the multiply factors that brings innovation at a high level. Number one, the technology skills, the technology revolution, the technology impact for human. And the technology is the added with the human connect, particularly technology and human connect added to the society and multiplied by design thinking that is required for the society, that is required for the industry, it becomes double. So we get into the form of innovation. So we cannot escape from the technological knowledge. Technological knowledge is a basic component of our life. The second aspect, today we are floating around the world with all information, too much information. We are scattered, we are confused with when you see the research articles, when the researcher shows that he will be confused and statements he cannot derive the proper data. So information is now nurtured with proper AI tools, with proper analytics, which can create knowledge. So information plus knowledge, that is important, but at the same time, if you want to create holistic creation, it should be multiplied the wisdom. The second multiplier of my concept will be in the wisdom. The wisdom brings you a social connect, the cultural impact of every society. Every society comes with a cultural impact. And the matrix which are there, the matrix and component items also included from culture, social values, social systems, which makes the society feel happy and productive. So when we talk about how these things are evolving towards enlightenment and multiplier factor, the basic thing are the body of knowledge, the body of society, and the body as an individual. The body plays a very vital role. When the body is connected to mind, the self-introspection happens, then it comes into the great form of knowledge. And this knowledge is to self-connect. Within the one person, he can connect to himself, he can search himself what exactly, at the same time, an individual can connect to others, that is society. Again, one can connect to one-to-one, one can connect to many. So this is one of the most important components, identifying how the knowledge or self-knowledge can multiply the economic development also. When a person is not able to connect himself properly, he cannot connect to society. When he cannot connect to society, he cannot manage the group of people who are going to produce the citizens. So from my point of view, the three major multipliers are basically innovation and holistic creation, and finally third multiplier is environment. This area might have not been discussed as the normal items which we discuss as knowledge items. These are the items out of my research experience which gives me a wisdom to think about it. Then what happens finally? We need with the knowledge coexistence. How this coexistence happens? When innovation plus creation happens, multiplied in enlightenment, we come into coexistence in the real world of income for human life. So today's world requires a coexistence with technology and involving ourselves with the knowledge. The factors which are multiplying today's economy is the Internet of Things, augmented reality and virtual reality, additive manufacturing, cyber security, and cloud computing, and big data, and artificial intelligence, and advanced robotics. These are the main factors which gives you today the coefficient of diffusion for the knowledge is concerned, because it will enhance the multiplying in different areas also. What are the major components in India which is not being considered? That we know that we have 130 crores plus population, and women plays a vital role in India. And every woman is, she produces huge amount of food. as a housemaker, homemaker, and nowhere is being taught, and nowhere services to the family, to the society, nowhere is taught. The knowledge that women want carried in India is infinite. I first of all would like to congratulate all the women of India who produce huge amount of food production. That should be considered as also an income factor. It should be included in GDP, and also they should be part of the great regulation and the knowledge providers. Thank you very much, Brenda. My time is exactly 10 minutes over. I congratulate the entire team, organizing committee and the management.
Thank you so much, sir. Next, would like to request our Dean, Dr. Manju Gupta, to please facilitate our guest for today for the current plenary round 1. First in the order, Mr. Shakun Khanna. Next one, Dr. Sujata Singhi. Dr. Venkata Harshvardhan Reddy. Govind sir would like to request you to please facilitate Dr. P. Srinivas Rao. Madam sir would humbly request you to please grace the dais. Next in the order, Dr. Preeti Yadav. सर दे रहे हैं ना सर. Miss Lakshika Joshi. Miss Lakshika Joshi. क्या नाम? R. Vijaya. Furthermore, we'd like to request Dr. R. Vijaya to please grace the dais and request Manju ma'am and Maram sir to please facilitate her as well. Richa ma'am. Next in the order we have Hema ma'am. Hema ma'am. Hema ma'am and then Richa ma'am. जो कुछ है. Hema ma'am, next. Audience, can we have a huge round of applause? जी मैम, डेफिनेटली मैं ज़रूर. Would request Hema ma'am if she could spare her valuable time to address the audience by her beautiful voice. Thank you, ma'am.
गुड आफ्टरनून। मैं नहीं जानती यहाँ पर कौन कौन बैठे हुए हैं, पर आप सभी को मेरा बहुत प्यार भरा नमस्कार। और आई एम हेमा सक्सेना, एंकर, सिंगर, मॉडल एंड सोशल एक्टिविस्ट ऑल्सो। सो थैंक्स मंजू जी जिन्होंने मुझे यहाँ बुलाया, एंड विनायक जी आपका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया, धन्यवाद। आपने यहाँ मंजू जी के साथ और आज इस कार्यक्रम के साथ इंट्रोड्यूस कराया। और छोटी सी दो आई थिंक इसका थोड़ा सा ऊपर हो जाएगा आवाज़। या हेलो जी, ये ठीक है एक्चुअली, क्योंकि मुझे आदत है एंकरिंग की, क्योंकि ये मेरे लिए बेस्ट करना है। छोटी सी दो लाइनें आप सभी के लिए आयशा जी की गीत की गाई हुई, जो कि आप पर, हम पर, सब पर और हर वक्त हर एक जगह हम आप इस चीज़ को यूज़ कर सकते हैं। आगे भी जाने न तू, पीछे भी जाने न तू, जो भी है बस यही एक पल है। आगे भी जाने न तू, पीछे भी जाने न तू, जो भी है बस यही एक पल है। जो भी है बस यही एक पल है। थैंक यू। क्योंकि आप सब और हम सब कोविड की लहर को झेल चुके हैं कि कल हो ना हो, आज जितना हम अच्छे से जी सकते हैं, जो कर सकते हैं, ज़रूर करना चाहिए। थैंक यू सो मच मंजू जी, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। थैंक यू सो मच।
Thank you so much, ma'am, for that beautiful, beautiful voice of yours and addressing all of us. It surely did make us wake alive. Next in the order we have Ms. Lakshika Joshi. Ms. Joshi is the lead IP Council Global and Assistant Vice President at Capgemini Engineering, a global innovation and engineering company, managing strategic tie-ups, cross-border transactions, innovation, research and development, export controls, global compliances and policies, and monetization are her forte. She has a penchant for emerging technologies, resolving complex problems and balancing commercial interests with legal risk. Ms. Joshi is a professional with rich and varied experience across legal and business functions. Her experience as a litigator during her initial years of practice at the Delhi High Court and Supreme Court of India provides a unique perspective to her business-oriented approach. She has been recognized extensively for her efforts in making a difference in the IPRAN legal fraternity. She has also won several awards and accolades for outstanding work done in her respective fields. She also holds a variety and innovation which she considers as a driving force. Would definitely love to hear from you, Ms. Joshi. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Am I audible? How's the Josh? How's the Josh? How's the Josh? Thank you. A very good afternoon to all of you here. I think there is something which I always like to describe myself, which I don't know, for some reason, maybe in a hurry or whatever, missed out from my bio that was read earlier. I would like to describe myself as a student forever. And as I've been here since morning, listening to everyone, listening to the esteemed panel, I think I've made a lot of notes. And honestly, I didn't come here with any preparation, any research, any data points on the topic or what specifically I need to address, because I came here to learn like most of you. I came here to imbibe from this session and from this interaction. Okay, so maybe I'll just go off the mic and I ask each of you, and my esteemed panelists did that earlier. What is your expectation from this conference? I know we all know the topic is here. We've had speakers since morning talk about, Gdkp. Thank you. This is much better. We've had speakers since morning talk about Gdkp, and we've had many other people address what Gdkp is on the web conference or the video conferencing when they joined us today. But let me share with you only my personal experience. And when I was given this topic, I sort of was quiet for a minute. It took me a while, and I'm not going to claim any fame to it that I'm the know-it-all and I knew what it meant. So it actually made me stop and think about what is this Gdkp, and a simple mantra that I've used in my life for everything that I do, and that's why I call myself still a student like most of you. I'm still learning. I'm learning from the panel, from dear professors and from all of you. Is break down any problem into 3 parts, and if you can address those 3 steps, you would have solved the problem at least 90%. And those 3 steps are what it is, why it is, and how we can benefit from it. So when I thought of Gdkp, I thought of it in these 3 steps. What is Gdkp? And we've had many speakers talk about it. We've had Professor address us, and he actually told us about what the mechanisms are, what are the metrics to measure it. Of course, it is slightly tough, and it's a nascent one. And then, why is it important to us? That was my second question. And then, how can I benefit from it? So these are the 3 things that I wanted to address. I'm going to make it extremely short and relevant so that you can relate to it. When I thought of why knowledge is an important factor, why would you think K is so important in that Gdkp? And I'm going to skip all of these notes that I took since morning. I'm just going to go back to, and we've all talked about the rich cultural heritage, the rich heritage we've had from our, Vedas, Upanishads and all of that. So I'm going to use one of the ancient languages in the human history to actually dwell upon the why and the importance of K in Gdkp. I'm going to quote a Sanskrit verse which says, Na chorharya, na rajharya, na, and I'm not sure how many of you understand Sanskrit, but I can translate that for you slightly later. What the shlok means is, I'm going to translate the shlok later. Let me first recite the shlok for you and why the knowledge factor is so important. Na chorharya, na cha rajharya, na bhratra bhanjanya, na cha bharbhari. So this means knowledge is something which cannot be taken away, which cannot be stolen. Knowledge is something which cannot be taken away by kings, by governments, by authorities. Your knowledge is truly yours. No one can take it away from you. Knowledge is something which needn't be taken away or shared and be lessened by that sharing. And knowledge is something which comes without burden. There is no burden if you carry knowledge with you. And the best part of the shlok is Vyaye krite vardat. Vyaye krite vardat means the more you spend, and there is only one such capital in this world, the more you spend, the more it increases. And that is the power of knowledge. This is the only true dhanam. This is the only true wealth in this world. And that is the reason why knowledge is such an important factor of the Gdkp. I'm myself an intellectual property attorney, intellectual property practitioner. I can talk for hours about the power of innovation and how creativity leads to innovation, innovation leads to invention, and invention aids the economic growth of a country or a nation. And there are many number of examples and various OECD reports and various other reports across the globe. But without getting into those technical details, each of you is a student, I would rather prefer for you to do those searches, but only to lead you in the direction of why this knowledge becomes important. And then how do we get knowledge if in the Gdkp scheme of things? Where do I get it from? How do I imbibe it? How do I put it to good use? I think this is just the right place to do that. You are a part of an educational institution, either as a faculty or as a student here. This is the right place. This is the place where, you know, the building blocks of this concept are being laid today. And this will go a long way, because here is where we do our research. Here is where the entire development of the concept is starting. I think today, in that sense, marks a historical date, because we are introducing this concept of Gdkp to the world. It's going to go a long way. It's going to take the whole concept of Professor Umberto Salpaso to a very different phase. I would urge that each of us, each of you participate more in researches to figure out how you can sort of bring data to this concept. And there's a lot of research which has already been done. There's been researches done around knowledge capital, and how knowledge capital is directly proportional to the GDP of countries, not just companies. Companies, of course, is a subset. And these are not new data or new reports. These are, I'm talking about, or I'm referring to an OECD 2013 report, which talked of the knowledge capital being exactly proportional to the GDP of countries. US and Sweden were rated on very high grounds in that report. And that also then relates directly to an index on knowledge which is published by UNDP. And one would wonder why an organization focused on development is doing knowledge indexes. And why would they have to do anything with knowledge when they should be looking at nations' growth, economy, and capital, and so on? The reason for that is that knowledge directly translates into capital growth, capital investments, and economy of the country. And you're free to go and read that report, but UNDP publishes this index. It is called the GKI, the Global Knowledge Index. Of course, India doesn't rank too high on that index. It ranks only 44.3%, and the global average is about 48.4, which means we are below the global average. This is something that I would leave as a thought for all of you as students here to think through, why we are so low on global knowledge index when we all belong to a country where we knew that Earth is round, and we knew about the Earth's rotational and revolution movements even before the modern age astronomers were even thinking about it. So why is it that we are lagging behind? And it is a mandate, or it's a responsibility that falls directly on you and me to actually change that, to be able to contribute to that knowledge factor and contribute to the growth of the country. So it's not like, you're here as listeners and as audience, and we'll tell you something like a magic mantra and you take that home. Each of us is a contributor to this Gdkp. Only when you feel that this is your own personal responsibility, I think we'll see the kind of growth that we want to see when we put knowledge as a factor in the GDP of countries. This is a concept that's only beginning to happen, but if we are not engaged enough with it, I think we will lag behind. We've had Western countries acquire patents on things like basmati rice, which belong to our country for ages and ages. We've had Western countries get patents on haldi. Haldi is something which even a small kid knows कि चोट लगी है तो हल्दी लगा लो ठीक हो जाता है. And there have been expatriates sitting in Western world trying to patent medicinal qualities of haldi. So what are we talking about? We've had
in terms of how digital helps economy. Yes, all of that is true. But all of that starts, like they say, charity begins at home. It will all begin at home only when you realize the importance of preserving this knowledge. There is a difference, I always tell my teenage daughter, between learning and knowledge. Please, please stay away from learning. It will only be with you for a few years, till your memory fades. But knowledge will stay with you forever. And that's all that I want to say today. Good luck to you. My best wishes to IMS, to all the students here. Please think through. This is a serious, serious thing that we discussed here today. Gdkp, each of us have to contribute to it to make our day and to make it something which is of value for the nation. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for shaking the souls of our students to think something out of the box and look for innovative practices rather than simple learning, converting them into the form of deeper knowledge.